Hey robot makers, hope you're having a good day so far. So it's time to meet another maker. Today we have Liz Clark from BlitzCityDIY, and you might know her from YouTube or from the Adafruit learning system, as she's been quite prolific on there. You might have even bought her book as well. So let's dive straight in. My name's Kevin. Come with me as we build robots, bring them to life with code, and have a whole load of fun along the way. Okay, so let's meet our maker. Hi Liz, how are you doing?
Hey, how's it going? I'm good. How are you?
Great. Awesome. Doing really well. So thanks for joining us on the show. We're going to talk about some electronics, making things, a bit of robots and stuff. So tell me, Liz, what was the first robot that you actually built?
So I think the first robot I actually built might have been for my book, which is on the Tinker board, which is kind of ASUS answer to single board computer. And I wanted to have, in the book, I wanted to have some projects and have them kind of more suited for a single board computer. So I made kind of a simple rover robot, but I stuck a Pi cam on the front and made it so that with a FFmpeg it was going into a browser window, so you could kind of stream the camera feed with the robot.
Yeah.
So I think that was the first one. And then after that, I kind of transitioned into some musical robots.
Awesome. So I have some slides on that we can show some people. So let me just bring one of these up. So we have the robot Xylophone. Talk me through this. This looks amazing.
Thanks. So this project I actually thought about before I really knew anything about coding or electronics.
Yeah.
I was a music tech major in college, and about halfway through, I became concerned that I wasn't learning enough to get a job. So I started looking into like coding and electronics and things. Didn't get too far, but that's how I learned about Arduino and that stuff was even possible, because when I was coming up in like primary school and things, like we didn't have classes like that in my school district. So
Yeah.
basically zero exposure. But I had done a lot of percussion stuff in my music studies, and I thought it would be really cool to be able to control acoustic instruments with MIDI,
Yeah.
so that they could talk to the computer and everything. So I wanted to build a robot xylophone, but I didn't have skills at the time. So then during the pandemic, I was home a lot, as we all were, and I thought now's a good time. So I had my bell kit, which I'd had since I think I was maybe 11 or 12 years old, from school band.
Wow.
And I got some little solenoid motors and had those strike the keys. Collaborated with Nairoz from Adafruit, and he came up with this system of these little kind of modular 3D printed parts that could hold the solenoids and would attach with some aluminum extrusions, which you can see there in the photo.
Oh yeah.
And then I 3D printed some little holders for the perma proto boards, which is how all the electronics are housed.
Yeah.
And there's a little kind of box in the back right corner there, and that's where the brains of it is, which is an itsy bitsy board from Adafruit. And it's an NRF 82840, and that's has Bluefruit on board, so it can actually do Bluetooth MIDI, so it doesn't have to be connected up through USB,
Awesome.
which adds another layer to it. So I was able to complete it. I think it was like April or May 2020, and yeah, it's still hooked up and works.
Awesome.
And kind of my next thing I'd like to do is get some piezo elements and kind of electrify it, because the
Yeah.
only thing that can be a little tricky is if I'm trying to do some stuff with it with my other synth setups, like recording it,
Yeah.
having it go into a track. So being able to do kind of a line out would be really helpful.
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, what I really like about this is the video that you did where you show you've literally just got it working and you're so excited. I know that feeling so well. It's like you just want to tell everyone it's working. It's working.
Yeah,
So
'cause-
yeah, you've got another one as well, the flute. Let's bring this one up. So the robot flute. Tell me about
so
this.
yeah, so this is still kind of in brainstorming mode, and in the middle of this, my 3D printer kind of unfortunately left this earth, so I had to kind of take a break for a bit. But basically, I kind of building on like having these acoustic instruments controlled through MIDI, I thought it'd be really cool to look into woodwind stuff. So this is just a plastic recorder, and then I'm kind of coming up with ways so that I can, articulate the notes and also like get air through it too.
Yeah.
So in that iteration, I was using kind of an air pump
Yep.
with a feather, and then again the little tiny solenoids. And what they were doing is kind of pushing down these kind of flex filament nubs to cover the holes.
Yeah.
And so the idea is it would receive a MIDI message, and so whatever note it would be, it would power on all those solenoids to cover up the holes and also send air through.
Yeah.
So the issues I can see come up with that is it's going to be a lot of amps. If your certain notes will take a lot of coverage from the solenoids.
Yep.
And also the pump itself is kind of loud. I've seen some other folks that have done kind of more automated things where I saw this one person had built this kind of pipe organ with PVC pipe,
Yep.
and they had a foot pump that was really quiet, and so they just had kind of that going with their foot the whole time to get air going through. So that might be something I look into going forward, or the noise might be a feature
Yeah.
from the pump.
So I did see a video from one of my heroes, James Bruton. He did a Henry the Hoover vacuum cleaner, and he managed to get that so it would pull air, and he had a whole load of recorders, these sort of plastic flutes, and I think he didn't use solenoids, he used servos, and they would open and close that way.
Okay.
It wasn't perfect, but he does play Africa by Toto on it, and it's quite an amazing thing to behold. It's huge.
I bet. Yeah, all those servos.
And that was noisy as well. But again, that was part of the feature. Like a bagpipe, it's just a drone, it's part of what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, and the woodwind and MIDI things, like there's not too much out there, so it's kind of like the new frontier, I feel like.
That's it. Cool. So we'll come back to some more of your projects in a second. I thought I'd ask you a few more of the questions I've got. So we've talked about the first robot. So what inspired you to create that? So what was it that made you think that's the thing I'm going to create next?
So as far as the first one with the book, it was really I feel really passionately that when you're doing projects for a single board computer, it should really be using a lot of the features of the single board computer to make it worth it with all that hardware. So that's why like it has the camera and it's streaming and everything, and then it was also controlled over Bluetooth, so like a Bluetooth keyboard would affect the direction.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was kind of what inspired me to create that.
Cool. So what are you working on currently then? Is there a project that you've got on the go?
Yeah. Let me switch up my camera to the overhead.
Awesome.
All right. So right now, I've got a couple things cooking. One of them being a fuzz face guitar pedal. So fuzz face is a really classic guitar pedal design, like very simple, just using 2 transistors, a couple of resistors, and caps. So my goal is that I want it to be on a PCB and an enclosure. So this was the first iteration, and it did not work. This PCB does not work at all because I really like wrecked the schematic. Like just it's terrible. Because what I did was I almost kind of played circuit telephone without meaning to, where I had breadboarded the circuit, and then I had changed some resistor values, which I've recently discovered I think is because I actually hadn't built the circuit correctly the first time, so that's why I was having to change values. And so I made note of all of that in fritzing. So I had this fritzing diagram that I'd built up because I'm really visual, so I like having the fritzing diagrams. And then I was taking that fritzing diagram, which had errors, and then I was putting that into an eagle schematic, which I then made more errors. So it was like getting worse as it went along. So then the PCBs come in, I solder everything up, and I'm getting like just strange errors where I'm not even getting a signal through just passively through the two connectors. And I was very confused, and I was ringing stuff out with a multimeter, and then I realized like I really was truly, it was just a problem with the circuit. So recently I went back and I redid the schematic in Eagle, and redid the board layout. And then what I did to test my work is I rebuilt the circuit on a breadboard following what I had in Eagle.
Yeah.
Exactly. And now this is working properly. I also remembered to add an on-off switch with an LED indicator, which is something I always forget. So I just sent those boards off to Fab, so they should be back in a week or two. So I'll do a follow-up video there.
Awesome.
And then the project I have going right now it's a holiday project, and it's actually a Hanukkah project, and it's an electronic dreidel.
Wow.
And using an Adafruit matrix portal. And the idea is that on the display, you'll be able to, oh, I pressed reset rather than the digital button, so it'll come up in a second. But you can see it's like spinning, quote unquote, through the faces. And so you'll be able to play a game of dreidel basically with this matrix display. And it's going to have a couple other features. To trigger the dreidel to spin, right now it's I'm pressing the button on the side, but the idea is like you'll be able to drop in some chocolate gelt into the pot.
Wow.
And then that will trigger to spin. And then if you land on Gimmel, which is the character that kind of has a little square with a tail, that's actually Gimmel right there. When you win that, the pot will dump out the chocolate coins. So that will be really fun and kind of robotic too. So you'll kind of have this robotic electronic dreidel project. So
Cool.
I'm hoping to have that done next 2 weeks or so, because Hanukkah is actually kind of early this year. It starts on the 29th of November.
Help me at chocolate.
So exactly, yeah. So that's kind of the two things I have cooking right now.
Awesome. One of the early YouTube videos I watched was a guy called Notes and Volts, and he does loads of kind of MIDI and musical stuff with Arduinos. And I don't know if he's still going. I don't see it in my feed anymore. But yeah, I bought all the stuff to make his stuff, and then it's just in a drawer down there. I've got a nice metal stomp case. Yeah, I didn't do anything with that, but you built like a synthesizer, quite an easy one with a couple of knobs on the top, and it would output MIDI or input MIDI, and you could output the line out and listen to it. So yeah, that's quite cool. Cool. So tell me, what are your greatest challenges when you're building things? Is it the programming, the mechanical side, the electronics, somewhere in the middle?
So I would say it used to be programming. That used to be the thing that would really trip me up. And I, ever since I switched over to CircuitPython, I've done a lot of projects on that now. Like it's really not as challenging. Like I don't approach a project and think, oh, I hope I'm going to be able to code that. So that's been good. So I think right now, probably the biggest challenge is just the design, like figuring out how we're going to do the enclosure, how everything's going to fit together, which is why I love collaborating with Nay, because he is so good at design and so good at just getting all the bits together. And so I feel like we kind of complement each other in that, where like I have the code, he does the design. We meet in the middle with electronics, and it takes a lot of the pressure off for me at least. But I think right now, kind of the new thing I'm working on is PCB layout. That's something that's really feels still very like a little scary to me, but with each project I get a little better. But,
yeah, a lot of people I've spoken to about PCB design say KiCad is the way to go. I started with Fritzing. I've not done an awful lot. I did the whole designing something on paper, transferring that to OmniGraffle on the Mac and sketching it out, and then printing that on a 3D on a laser printer, and then you sort of put that onto a copper board, iron it on, and it's supposed to transfer the ink to the copper, and then you put some ferric acid fluid on there, and what you're left with is the etching. That's what's supposed to happen. I've got 10 boards in there that says that doesn't work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it wasn't the best. So
I've always wanted to try that. The one thing I tried last summer was I used a Cricut and cut out the PCB traces on this like sticker copper and
Yep.
put it onto paper. And so I was kind of soldering on paper, which was a little sketchy, but it did work. I was
Yep.
blinking an LED with just like a simple little circuit.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
I think I've got a paper one somewhere. I used to have that to hand. I must have moved it. And it was a paper Duino. You might have seen them.
Oh, okay.
Oh, crap. I don't know where it is. But yeah, it's a paper-based Arduino. And you print it out and it's got all the, where the tracings need to be. But you just put wires there and you push the components through the cardboard and then solder on the back. But then, yeah, you are soldering with paper. So there's lots of burn and smoke.
Okay.
But it does work.
Yeah.
For people who have everything other than like Vero board.
Yeah.
So, so tell me, where did you come up with the ideas for your videos then?
You know, for most part, stuff that I'm kind of working on naturally. Like it's a project I want to build, or maybe it's like some technique I want to try out, and I think I'll document it along the way. Recently, I've been trying to kind of change up how I approach videos and kind of make it a little bit more. I kind of cringe a little bit at the term, but like artistic. Where like I just want to have like really concentrate on like how the shots are looking
Yep.
and make it just a little bit different than just sitting on the front of the camera and being like, I made this thing, here's what it does.
Yes.
So just trying to switch it up from there. Like recently with the Ascatone Scout video, I wanted that to be weird. And instead of just doing like a standard like kit video, I wanted to like show all the assembly, but have it just have kind of a funky music backdrop and make it kind of this journey on the build.
And how did that video do? I watched that one. It's not weird. It's engaging. You're like, where's this going? I'm all in for this journey with the sort of drumming and everything.
It did pretty well. I don't really pay too close attention to the stats just because I am doing this for fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, it did decent.
Good. Excellent. So just before we get to the next questions then, if anybody does have any questions for Liz, put them in the chat. Alex will collect them and we'll ask them a bit later on. Cool. So you wrote a book, right? How did that happen?
So that was wild. So when the Asus Tinkerboard came out, I actually was originally starting my YouTube channel more from the world of like desktop computers and like building PCs and kind of that world. And so when Asus was releasing a single board computer, I was really excited by it because I was always trying to tell folks that did the computer stuff that like a lot of the things that they're maybe buying specialized components for, like they could do it themselves with all the DIY stuff that was out there. So I started like doing some videos on the Tinkerboard and getting really into it. And then a press, which is the publisher of my book, reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to write a book on the Asus Tinkerboard? Because they'd seen all my videos. Which at first I didn't think it was a real email. I thought it was spam. But then I talked to them and like they're into it. And it so happened like when I was a little kid, that's what I'd always wanted to do. I always wanted to write a book. And at the time I was like in my mid-20s. I didn't really have any other engagements other than my day jobs. I was like, this is good timing. I'm just gonna go for it. And so yeah, then I wrote a book and like 6 months, which is a really fast deadline. But I did it and I was pretty proud of it. So I'm not sure how many folks have actually read it because it's a very niche thing. It's not only it's like the world of electronics and things, but it's the Tinkerboard specifically. But I did try to write it so that it was more of an intro into getting started with Linux and hardware electronics too. So it's a little bit more generalized than just the Tinkerboard.
So do you think you'll write more books? Have you got the book for that? I know it's quite a lot of effort.
It is so much work. It's very rewarding, but it's a huge time commitment, and it's a lot. So you have to really be in the right place, right time for it to be a viable thing to do.
Cool. So when you go about designing things, is there a process? Is it more experimental? Tell me about how the sort of thought process.
Often it's like I'll think of something that I kind of need. Like if it, especially for MIDI stuff or like fuzzbell, something that I want to use, but I think I could probably build it rather than buy it.
Yeah.
That's a lot of the kind of the way that I'll approach designing something and going about a project. The other thing is if like a new component or board comes out and I want to use it just because it seems cool, I'll kind of think of a project that would use it effectively. So that those are kind of like the two avenues that I'll go by to design something. But more often than not, it's something that I would use and find useful, and so then I kind of design it that way.
Got you. I know exactly what you mean about the when something new comes out and you want to experiment with that. So that's how this little guy came about. This is my tiny Smars mini robot. It has a little laser rangefinder on the front, two tiny N20 motors inside, and then on the back, on the backpack, it has I think it's an RP 2040 Tiny by Pimeroni, based in Sheffield, and yeah, it works. Runs MicroPython. It's the same chip as a Raspberry Pi Pico. Has all the same capabilities, just half the height. And this thing is tiny. So yeah, I know exactly where you're coming from. Something new comes out and you're like, gotta do something with that. So speaking of which,
a question on the laser. So does that mean that it knows how to not crash into stuff? Is that how that's working?
Yes.
Or?
Yeah, so it's a rangefinder. It's very similar to them rangefinders that you see on these kinds of robots. You know, these this is an ultrasonic one. So that's sending out a sound wave, listening to it coming back. You chop the sound, you know, the time in half, and then you've got the distance. And this works exactly the same way, but it has light. So it has a light beam that comes out. Works to about maybe 2 meters, something like that. So it's not massive, but it's good enough. And yeah, it gets a very accurate reading. So again, it measures the time taken to come back. You slice that in two, and you've got the distance. So you can sort of move it along. And when it gets within 5 centimeters, you could say stop, go backwards, turn, and move again. Very simple. Yeah.
Thanks.
So what else was I going to say about that? Yeah, and sometimes I just have an idea myself, and I'll think, I've got to make that. How do we go about making that? So that weather robot that I put together, that we're talking about with the servo, which is the temperature gauge. It's got like a bit of a retro look to the weatherbot.
Yeah, I love that gauge. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite novel. And then it's just got the DHT22, I think it is, in his hand. And everything's just, the idea is it's supposed to look like a robot. So all the wires are on the back. And there's a 8266 or Node MCU chip on the back. So the code on this is MicroPython, and it can actually upload the readings to an MQTT server. So you can then do nice charts and graphs and whatever else you want, home automation stuff. But yeah, it's very simple. Just inside there's just a single SG90 servo, so pretty cheap to put together.
Excellent.
Yeah, and that's one I'd had in my brain for a while, and I thought I've just got to make that, see where it goes. So back to you. We'll go back to the keynote for a second, because I think the next one, yes, Raspberry Pi 2, that came out and you did a video. You were lucky enough to get hold of one of these early.
Yeah, so I always panic a little if I'm sent something pre-release that I'm gonna be the one that spills the beans, so I get a little paranoid. So even I do most of my work at my like coffee table here at my couch ever since I'm on a laptop right now, and so even when I was taking pictures of other projects, I would make sure I was putting it in the drawer just in case. But yeah, I think it's a really exciting new board, just because it's got the power of the Pi 3 basically, but in that smaller form factor. And like I was saying, like I always want to make sure the board I'm using for a project is appropriate for the needs, and often the full size Raspberry Pi, like it will just feel too big really, and such a cost to make a project around it that's going to be embedded unless it has like a lot going on. So the smaller form factor with that power I think is going to be so cool, especially using Blinka, the CircuitPython compatibility layer for Raspberry Pi. Like I'm very excited to go a little deeper into that.
Yeah, I'll have to have a look at that. I do have a couple of robots that have Raspberry Pi 0, the original one in there, so that's a quad robot. And this one has OpenCV, so it can do face detection. But on a Raspberry Pi Zero, the first generation, it's quite choppy because obviously it's not very fast. So I'm really interested to know how that will work on there. It's not got round to putting the 02 in there yet.
Gotcha.
What do you think about the memory though? It's a little bit meh.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, especially like I didn't fully know about the architecture of the chip because it's not a system on chip. It's like this kind of, it's all under one hood, like including the memory. When I was doing the video, but yeah, only half a gig of RAM. I do wish it was the full gig.
It's a bit tight, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think for embedded stuff, it's gonna.
And for the price point, it's amazing still.
That's
yeah. I mean, the fact that they can give that away on the front of a magazine just blows my mind. You know, it's like giving it away in a packet of cornflakes. It's insane.
Yeah, that is wild.
So, let's get back to some of those other projects. So the next one is the Midi Fighter. Tell me about this.
Yeah, so this was another collab with Nay. He designed all the case and everything, and that sweet acrylic cutout. And we kind of did this around the release of the Pico board, so we may have been kind of milking it a bit to have it featured in the front, just so everyone knows like this is on a Pico, guys. Yeah. Basically, this is just a 4x4 arcade button controller for MIDI. So a lot of folks have made MIDI fighters before, but what makes it a little bit unique is that screen there. You can change which MIDI number or note each button is assigned to, like on the fly. Yeah. So you don't have to adjust the code or anything. There's a little 4x1 toggle switch there, so you can scroll around and control it that way. And the buttons do light up, which is also nice.
Can you pick the color, or is that? Are they just?
No, they're just one light up there. But. So awesome. That's been a fun project, and I do use that fairly regularly with my synth setup, and also Nay does really awesome finger drumming, and he'll post videos using that too.
Yeah, I have the same USB cable as well. Just noticed.
Oh yeah,
I have that pack.
I love those.
Absolutely. So tell me, where do you think robotics will be in sort of 10 years time, 10, 20, 50 years time?
So I don't know. That kind of stuff kind of freaks me out just a little bit, only because like I see the Boston Dynamics videos and I get like real cringy. Like they do not excite me. They upset me deeply. So I hope there's maybe some like regulation to make sure they don't become all militarized and everything, and that like local police departments don't have access to those kind of things. It kind of freaks me out. But I don't know. I mean, I think maybe if there were some like Wall-E style robots trying to clean up the environment and stuff, that'd be cool. But yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm interested to know if Elon Musk comes through with his robot. So he announced it. I think he announced it because there was something going on with the share price at the time, and it was kind of like, look at this over here, ignore that. Because they haven't got any prototype. They just announced that they were working on it, and because they're Tesla, you know, they'll have a fully autonomous robot in a year's time. Now, Boston Dynamics have been doing this, 20 or 30 years, and they don't have that. So,
no.
But, you know, he has sent somebody into space, so what do I know?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is the ethics and the people behind that kind of technology. That's, it's something I'm always worried about.
I'm always a bit underwhelmed by where things are at. I'm always like, come on, why can't we do more than that? But maybe that's a good thing. I think the pace that we expect. I mean, sometimes people ask questions on some of these Facebook and Reddit groups about, can you teach a robot to learn like another language? Was one that came up this week, and I thought, well, to learn requires a level of cognition that we just can't program at the moment. That's way, way off in the future. We can make them do pattern matching, and that can look intelligent, but it isn't. It's just fancy maths in the background. So doing like face recognition or pose estimation, that's easy to do. It's trivial now. Yeah. But actually, it isn't learning it in a sort of human sense. It's just pattern matching. So I think they'll get better at doing that, but they'll not get better at household chores anytime soon. You know, think about a robot just trying to do like put the washing in the washing machine. You know, if some
Right.
sock falls out, does it detect that? Does it balance everything? There's so much going on there. But we
Yeah.
would want
And I
that. We
did
would pay
see
for that.
yeah. I saw some recently where there was some robots being used for construction, and they were kind of designed to almost imitate human movement. And someone pointed out that why are they designing it that way when it's probably would be more efficient to design
Yeah,
like robots that could just lift and stuff rather than doing this kind of like human replacement
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, we're always drawn to that, I think, to make things human-like. And that isn't necessarily the best design for whatever the task is. So a
Hmm.
washing machine doesn't look like a person doing hand washing. It looks like a box that you put stuff in and then it cleans it the best way.
Right.
So yeah, I think there's probably quite a few iterations to go there before we get domestic robots.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go back to some of the other projects. You've got so many here to go through.
Oh yeah.
I love these. So I could so do with this. Fume extractor. So talk to me about this one.
So again, Nay did a great design with the enclosure in case. So I thought it'd be cool if there was a kind of a fume extractor that could sense air quality and adjust its
Ah,
PWM as a result. So there is a little sensor behind that tiny front fan that
yeah,
detects the ECO2 in the air, and that's displayed on the screen there, which is the Funhouse board from Adafruit, which is ESP32 baseboard. And then it will also show you what the fan speed is in relation to the Park Pavilion air quality. And then there's I think it's a 140 millimeter Noctua computer fan
yeah,
behind. That's actually what's kind of stuck in the air. And then you can either choose to send your fume data to the cloud, which is connected to Adafruit IO, or you can have it be disconnected. In that picture, it's actually disconnected because there's a little red X. Because much like my concerns about robots, I also have concerns about IoT devices.
mm,
And so I don't like too many things connected to the network or sending data.
yeah,
So this is kind of my way of having it. You have the option, but if you want to just have it be kind of offline and just doing its thing, but still seeing the data in real time, like
yeah.
there's one way to do it.
I do wonder how many Raspberry Pis are out there with the username of Pi and the password of Raspberry. It's
Mm,
probably a
yeah.
frightening amount.
I actually have a little story about an experience I had recently with that. I had done a fresh install on a Pi, and I turned it on and plugged it into network, and I was at work, and it was for a project I was doing at work. But then the day got away from me, and I did not touch the Pi after boot up. I just left it, and I hadn't changed any defaults. And all of a sudden, like I get all these chats from coworkers and desktop support saying that there was an alert from the incident response team saying there was a Raspberry Pi that was basically trying to SSH into a bunch of ports and plugged into a port at my location, and I was like, oh my god, it's my Pi. Like, so I had to I just like
Oops.
ripped all the plugs out. I was like, oh my god. So it can happen. It can become compromised if you don't change the default. So that was a more extreme version
Mm,
of that. Never had anything like that happen before, but hey, you don't want to have to explain why you have a
yep,
random Raspberry Pi plugged into the incident response team of
this is
your
it.
place of employment. I don't recommend it. It's a bad day.
So that was the IoT fume extractor.
Mm.
We've seen the fuzz face on your desk, but we've got a
Yeah.
picture of it here. So yeah, that's pretty cool. There's no chips in that. It's all analog, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. So you're basically kind of clipping out the transistors, which
Yeah,
is nice, and
yeah. They do kind of a
just a
seesaw
pot
effect, don't they,
for
to get the square wave? My dad tells
yes.
me.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it's just a pot for volume and a pot that kind of adjusts the tone or kind of fuzz them out.
Yeah, cool. So have you run this through your guitar? Have you heard it yet?
Yes, and sounds. I love the sound of fuzz. Some people it's a little too aggressive.
Yeah,
But if you're into kind of punk or more hardcore music, like it's gonna be like exactly what you're looking for. And the fuzz phase was kind of like the first fuzz effect. There's been a bunch of iterations like since then, but this is kind of your classic
yeah.
circuit.
Awesome. So have you thought about any of the design for the enclosure yet?
So I want it to be small, which is why for the PCB I've kept it like really
Yeah.
square and tiny, and I even like laid out the resistors so that they're standing up rather than flat. And also the back silk screen, I made it like a fuzzy TV.
I like that.
So that was a little thing I did. So I definitely want the pots on the top, and then probably the plugs at the kind of front side, kind of sticking out the front there. And then for the power switch, I'm going to do kind of a really old school toggle, because I do want it to look kind of wonky. And then I might do a 3D printed enclosure, or I might drill out an aluminum enclosure. I'm not 100% sure yet, but yeah, it'll be kind of like a classic, like small box. I really want it to be tiny and cute, basically.
Yeah, I think the aluminium case might be more robust if it's. I suppose
definitely.
you're not stomping on it, but yeah, it'll survive being moved around. I was in a band back in the day when I was in sixth form. I played keyboards.
Very cool.
So I had a few sound boxes. Cool. So let's have a look what else we've got on here. So the disconnected CO2 monitor. So is this similar to the extractor fuse thing? Fume extractor?
So this came from kind of a real world need where I was curious about the air quality, just in places that I was at, public transit and things. But I couldn't really connect to the internet to log it. And a lot of those kind of environmental sensors, like they depend on internet connection. So what this is, and I'll switch cameras, we can kind of take it apart a little bit. Basically, what it is it's a CO2 sensor on the top here, and then it's a snap fit case. So open this up.
That's cool.
And it's a Feather RP2040 along with an ADA logger. And the ADA logger Featherwing has a real-time clock and an SD card slot. So with that, you can keep time, and then you can also log all of the data with a timestamp to the SD card. So as soon as I power it on, it starts logging. It's all written in CircuitPython. And then afterwards, you have this text file that has all your data that then you can bring into whatever your preferred kind of charts program is. I mainly was using a Google Sheets because it was pretty simple. And I formatted the data so it was comma delimited, so it traveled pretty well. And then you can make your little line graphs and see how good or how terrible your air quality is over time.
Have you had any results from that yet?
I did, and it was upsetting.
Really? Oh dear.
Yeah, it was some stuff on the train. Like I take the train every day for work, and you can just see the CO2 levels climbing at certain times. And also it was interesting to see like where I sat on the train, how that affected the CO2 levels and like the type of train car, because where I am in Boston, like there's single decker trains which are like kind of older, and they even have this like wood paneling, and then there's double decker trains, and so it was just interesting to see how all of that kind of played out, because kind of healthy indoor air levels are kind of 800 and below for CO2. And I was seeing levels that were between like 1,000 to 1,500. So wow. Yeah, and everyone's wearing masks and everything. So it's just interesting, and just seeing like just kind of being armed with that knowledge of like where the airflow is a little bit better if I want to just be airing on the absolute side of caution. It was really helpful. So.
Cool. I shall have to try that. I've not tried any air quality sensors. I shall have to look into them.
Cool. This was really my first time using it as well. But it was interesting.
Cool. So tell me about this BLPlay pause button.
Yeah, so this was a collaboration with Sophie Wong, who's an amazing designer, and electronics artist and wearables and everything. And so we wanted to do a project together, just kind of for fun. And she was doing a lot of stuff with CNC at the time, so she wanted to do something where she kind of milled out a panel. And I we were kind of chatting through what we wanted to do, and we kind of came up with the idea of like when we're working in the shop, like we always want to like be controlling our music, and so it's kind of an over-engineered button that's just it connects via Bluetooth to your phone, and you can play and pause your music. So the idea is like then you don't have to actually be like going toward your phone, like if you're working with a soldering iron or something.
Yeah,
you can just press the button. And so she designed the panel and the case, and then I just did some really simple CircuitPython code. But yeah, it was a fun little.
Yeah, I love the design of it. I love it looks very hand drawn, but I understand it's CNC'd.
Yes, but she did actually draw the design. I believe her process was, and she has a video on it too, where she kind of designed it in Adobe Illustrator.
Wow.
And then exported that out into Fusion so that it could be milled, which is really cool because I think and she does that a lot where she'll kind of like draw everything, but then she's able to digitally fabricate it, which is really cool. Gives it a really like organic effect.
Yeah, I love the combination of like the 3D printed the bottom of the case and then the aluminium. I assume it's aluminium on the top. Looks really cool. It's all brushed aluminium look. Yeah, and then the black filled in. Is that just like marker pen or is that paint?
I believe she did acrylic paint and kind of like brushed it through and then wiped off the excess so that it was just going into the milled out parts. It looks really cool.
Yeah. I love that sort of intersection of technology and art where they sort of come together. You get the best sort of things with that. Talking of which, I should go back to there because the last thing you've made is just pure art. I love this. 3D printable eggs. So what's the story behind this?
So my cats actually had this catnip felt egg that I thought was really cute, and I thought to myself, I bet I could design that in Fusion because it's just some simple shapes. And I just wanted to make some egg magnets, so I just made a couple different versions of fried eggs and printed them. I love using a filament change to do different color 3D prints. So that was a really easy one to do.
Also, they're not like separate parts put together. They're all the same print job.
It's all one print. So the egg white and then a switch at the yolk. And I did put two little cutouts kind of in the back so you can stick magnets in with some glue. And it made an excuse to do kind of an elaborate skit at the beginning of the video too, where I'm serving the eggs and cutting into them. So
I've not seen that one. I shall have to look at that one afterwards.
I mean, it's probably not my best work, but it's kind of funny, I think, at least.
Awesome. So let me just have a see if there's any other questions I had, and then we can see what everybody else wants to ask as well. So, so we talked about you live in Boston in the US. So a question about who inspires you then. So who are the kind of makers, designers, creators, artists who inspire you?
So there's quite a few, but I'd say Thea Flowers. She runs Winter Bloom Synths. She's also self-taught in hardware and things, and I just think she does amazing work, and she floors me every time with all the stuff she does, and her design aesthetic as well. Adafruit also inspires me just with their ethos on how they approach electronics, kind of with this focus on making sure they're building a community that's positive and inclusive. And that's also why I've been drawn to like do learn guides for them as well. And then I really love David Picciuto's videos and his approach to doing woodworking and everything. I really think he's really cool with just how he approaches stuff. And then kind of outside of the maker arena, Dan Deacon is a musician, probably my favorite musician, and he just does all this really experimental stuff with his instruments and his live shows and how he composes, and just his visuals as well. He's done a lot of stuff with Adult Swim, where they've done like cartoons specifically synced up to his music. I definitely recommend if folks are looking to kind of see one of his first things. the song When I Was Done Dying, which I promise isn't as depressing as it sounds. But it's just this really beautiful art made along with it. So those are a few examples of folks that inspire me.
Awesome. So yeah, I'll definitely have to check out Thea's stuff as well. I'm into sort of exploring new artists that I've not come across before, so that's somebody I'm going to check out. So tell me, do you have any other hobbies? I mean, you've got quite a few as it is. So
Yeah.
there's writing books, there's building things, music.
Yeah. I saw that question, so I have a couple examples of it.
Cool.
I knit. So I knit this flying saucer
Wow.
a couple years back, and this planet. I also will knit like scarves and blankets for folks, but I realize I don't actually have any examples of that because I give them away. But this is at
That's
least
cool.
a little show of it. I also do cross stitch. This was just a kit of a cat. But that's most of the art around my apartment. If you see it in the back of my videos, like I've cross stitched it.
Yep.
And I also do a little bit of woodworking. I'm kind of getting into it. And so I cut these little cacti
I like
with
cacti.
the scroll saw. So they were compound cuts, which basically means like I had a block of wood, and so this template was on the front, and then this one was on the side. And so you cut the front out and then the side, and you kind of get this little 3D printed, well, not 3D printed, 3D shape out of it afterwards. And then I watered down some acrylic to paint them. So those are some other. I feel like they're kind of maker adjacent hobbies, though. Yeah, just no electronics involved.
It's funny how these things, they sort of feed off each other. Like you'll have an idea, you'll be working on something, and you think, oh, I could do that in this area, and they sort of cross-pollinate. I always find.
Yes, definitely.
So, final question: is there anything that you'd like to mention or talk about where you have this platform?
The only thing I'll say is one thing that I really care about with my projects and also how I approach my channel and everything is that the idea that tech is not neutral, and what we put out there, it has impact. And so I always try to approach everything with the intent of making sure everyone feels welcome on my channel and in the comments.
Yep.
And that's something that's very important to me. And also making sure that folks also know that like just because you're in a hobby, like you're not in this little bubble, like
Yes.
you're still being affected by the outside world. So that's why at the beginning of my videos I will often highlight things that are going on with social justice or things going on
Yep.
just around that I want people to be aware of. So that
Yeah, I really like
something
that. I think that does make a difference. Sort of putting your stamp, what you think should be the way it should be. Beginning of your videos, that can really sort of set the tone. And if people don't like that, they can they can ship out.
That's how I feel. And when I first started it, a few folks reached out to me and said, "Hey, like no one's gonna watch your videos." Not that I cared, because like I said, like stats stuff. But
Yeah.
I have to say, it's really made the comments in general a lot more positive, and I find it's really kind of it's set a tone and an expectation, and I recommend it for folks
Yeah.
to do. It really helps, I think, to just make sure you're cultivating a positive community.
Yeah. I remember when GitHub made a change to the way they label their branches. So it used to be that there was a branch called the master branch, and then you had all the branches. And they said they didn't like the connotation, the link to slavery, and
Yes.
unempowerment of black people, and they were going to make the change to main instead. And it's just a name. So I talked about this in one of the earlier videos, and I had a few people unsubscribe and sort of say just stick to the tech and all this. And I thought, well, if that's what you're like, I don't want to be associated with you.
Exactly.
So thank you for leaving the channel and making way for people who are more like me. It's a small
Yes.
thing, but cool. So if you had a question for the next guest, what would you ask them?
I made a note of this. So if budget and time were not a factor, what
Yep.
dream project would you work on?
Oh, good question. Making a note of that. I can always watch it back, but I'd like to make a note. I remember. Awesome. So let's have a look at some of the questions that people have been putting in the chat. Let me just move that to one side. And let's go right back to the beginning. People have been really chatty.
Oh, really?
So let me just catch up to where we start. So I need to do it on this window, don't I? So if I want to bring a message on the screen, I have to do it on this other window. So let me just find that. So we have some new people. Aloha from, how do you pronounce that? Deshipa? Hey.
Yeah, Deshipa. Hey.
Thanks for joining the channel. We've got Coda1448 as well. Hey. We've got Tom as well. Hey, Tom. And Marcus, who I know from the live streaming group. Hey, Marcus. He said he understands 10% of this, but it looks fascinating. That's good enough. Okay. It looks good. Then we're doing a good job. So a glass would be fun instead of paper. That would be cool. I've seen some videos. I think you're talking about PCBs, aren't you? Yeah, using a glass PCB. It is hard to work on them, and you've got to be careful with the heat because you can crack the glass. But yeah, it looks really cool if you do that. I've seen some of them. Cool. Yeah. So Adam says hi. He's an M5 stack person. Hey, Adam. So let's see what else we have. So I actually watch Liz often on the Diode Zone. Cool.
Yeah, Diode Zone is a pure tube instance. So it's a kind of decentralized, and the intent of that channel is electronics and art. So a lot of folks are uploading things kind of in that arena. So yeah. I always cross-upload my YouTube videos up there, and then I also, that's where I post all my kind of synth jams, or sometimes I'll just do like soldering time lapses for fun, and I'll just throw them up there too.
Yep. I was talking to Alex Glow about that the other day on her video. She was doing some soldering of the is it the Oski Scout MIDI thing?
Yeah.
And I was just enjoying watching the solder solidify, and made a comment about that.
I love soldering videos.
Cool. So it's like open source YouTube for electronics only. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. And Scamline runs it. I don't know who Scamline is.
Oh yeah, Micah Scott. She's done amazing work with electronics and hacking and everything.
Cool. So I had to smile this week when Facebook member turned on to, what's that? I have no idea. So I've got some family saying hi to all my family who are watching. It's quite a family show. My daughter doing the moderation in the background there. I think he finished typing something, and then it. So I had to smile this week on Facebook, but turned on to another member and said, "Don't argue with AJ. He literally wrote the book on UI flow, which is a M5 stack, isn't it?" There's like on these M5. I've got the Fire one here. You can build like little applications, and the UI flow is the sort of software used to build them. It's really cool.
Very cool. Nice.
Cool. So what else we got? Adam says the RP's 2. I've just got the Raspberry Pi 4B. So it's different projects, different boards.
Yeah, and the 4 is actually going to be more powerful than the 02. So
yeah,
there's that.
And it's a little bit more RAM.
Yes.
Cool. So they're talking about MakerCast. What's MakerCast? There's so many things I don't know that I should do. Let's make a note of that.
So that's a show that kind of gets passed around who's hosting, and mainly electronics focused. I believe they have a show today. It's either at 3 or 4 p.m. Eastern, so that'd be, I think, 8 or 9 p.m. GMT. Cool. I'm doing that right.
Yep. It's been really confusing this past week with the time zones.
Yes, we went backwards this last night.
Yeah.
So
that the clock in your car will be wrong for another year.
Yeah.
We can build robots, but setting the microwave clock, that's beyond a regular human.
I always try to do it before I go to bed, so when I wake up, it's all set. I trick myself.
So I was just saying she loves Boston Dynamics. they do some cool stuff. I want to see the actual product. I mean, where's the Sentry Dog that you can buy that can wander around your property and detect actual, intruders and
Yeah.
affordable? Yes, going to sew some stuff off. Cool. And Adam says he doesn't like Boston Dynamics. They're too close to Skynet.
I agree.
Yeah. Skynet came and went. Yeah. It never happened. Again, I think it's one of those things that in movies they always talk about these big robots taking over the world, and it's more the billionaires with their agenda taking over the world. I don't think it's going to be a robot.
Yeah,
Though,
I mean, it all goes into who's making the decision and are they making it ethically and how is it being used.
Exactly. I know we were talking before. I saw this comment come up about the Raspberry Pi and the password being raspberry. So Adam was like, "Oops, just change it."
Really quick conversation there.
So it's switched off, so it's safe for hacking. All right, yeah. If it's in the drawer, it's fine. It's not going to do any hassle there. Cool.
It's at work. It's not.
So Adam, interestingly, was saying, don't use Co2 sensors if you want to worry about actual CO2 levels.
That's true. So this sensor is an actual CO2 sensor. It gets the as a result, it's a little bit more spendy, but worth it if you want to know precisely what the CO2 level is.
Yep.
The sensor I used in the solder fume extractor is ECO2, but that's more about just knowing how is the air quality. I don't need to know like exactly. So that is an important note though.
Yeah, and I think the one of the guests we had on the show before, Simon Monk, he has the company Monk Makes. They sell on Adafruit as well, and I think they have a air quality sensor. So it might be worth checking that out as well. He makes them very easy to use. Cool. Yeah, so Thea Flowers is in the house. Was giving us some wave. A lot of love for Thea Flowers in the show, if you can pronounce the name. Cool. So everybody's saying hello there. And she's a big fan of over-engineered buttons. Who isn't?
Yes. She has a module called, for your accent, called the Big Honking Button. And it's an arcade button, so you can trigger a sound that way, but it also has a way to take the gate in and trigger the sound too. So.
Cool. I need some of them. I've got some sound effects on here that we need to just... I don't know if that comes through. It's terrible. That's better. Cool. Nice. So yeah, definitely need some buttons. I'm a big fan of just general buttons. We've got a subscriber there. Thank you, Dave Darko. You might be watching a completely random video, not this live stream, but hey, thanks anyway. Good. We've got a question from Marcus. What's the most surprising thing that happened on a project?
Trying to think. I ran into a lot of issues actually with the robot Xylophone. Because when I initially started it, I thought about making it kind of this analog instrument. And so I was doing PCBs, like little tiny ones, that would be the circuit to trigger the solenoid. And I just completely wired them incorrectly. Like 2 or 3 times, to the point that I stepped away from the project. And switched over to using an IC. But that was probably a big thing. I'm trying to think. I feel like I have something actually surprising, but I'm blanking a bit. But yeah, I'd say probably PCB failures are always the most surprising, because they never fail how you think they're gonna be.
No,
like, even if you're like, I bet I probably messed this part up, and it's like, no, I actually messed this part up that was like way more basic and I should have caught.
Yeah, usually like the sensor falls off the pin or it isn't pushed in properly, and you spend an hour trying to debug your code and it was fine all along. It was just that there was a pin not quite pushed into the breadboard. Or I have that all the time.
Actually, the other day when I was working on the dreidel project and I was just trying to do the button to make it go, I couldn't figure out why it wasn't recognizing the button, and I thought maybe it lifted off the pad just because it's connected to the matrix portal. And I realized like I was missing the dot value in the CircuitPython code. I was just checking if the variable
Yes.
down button was true, and it was doing nothing, and I
Yeah.
couldn't figure out why. And I was like, dbutton.value. I was like, oh, there you go.
I've done that countless times. And it's so frustrating as well because it parses as code. You're like, what's going wrong? And you might print out the value and get that bit of code right and it looks correct. And then, oh, yeah, programming.
Yes.
On the other side, it's like a feedback loop. If I'm inspired by Liz and Liz is inspired by me, are we just in, what's that, an Ouroboros of inspiration?
I'll be a part of an Ouroboros of inspiration. That sounds lovely.
The positive feedback loop. Awesome. And Adam says it's a small world when you find that all the YouTubers are inspired by others who actually follow them. This is it. It's a small world. There's only so many people. It's only 7 billion people.
Yeah. And as much as sometimes I cringe putting out a YouTube video, I love the people I've met and been able to talk to in doing it, which was a big goal of mine when I started, just because, you know, folks that I'm friends with, like in real life, even though the internet is real life, they are not into electronics. They do not care about the random code things I'm working on. So to connect with folks that have those same interests, that you can chat with, like it's really awesome. And then move on to also collaborating with them too. Is really cool.
That's really cool. I've not got there yet. We've done a little bit of collaboration with Camillo, who does these auto DIY robots. But nothing yet to sort of share or show, but we've done a bit of work together on that, which is cool. And the inventor of the SMARS robot, which is the guy who designed these robots, I've invited him to be on the show, but English isn't his first language, so he's a bit nervous about coming on a live show. But maybe we can get him on to do a pre-recorded one.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I've collabed a few times on stuff with that, and I'm the biggest SMARS fan there is. That's my handle on Twitter, SMARS fan. Cool. So let's have a look what else we've got on here. Yeah, budget and time are essential. I think sometimes as well, it can make you make good decisions about stuff, because if you've got time as a limit, you might make some compromises or just a decision on something. So they can help.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
I do like restrictions with artistic stuff, just because it'll have you make decisions that otherwise you wouldn't have possibly made otherwise.
Yeah. But yeah, if you had unlimited budget, just think of the things you could contemplate there.
Yeah. And by time, I also, most of us, I think, have, you know, day jobs or other commitments. So kind of like if you had a very long vacation and you can just work on that project the whole vacation and not worry about, you know, vacuuming or other things.
That's what we have robots for. We do have robot vacuum cleaners. They do work, kind of. As long as you don't have any dogs.
Yeah, or cat toys everywhere. Which mine, who's been sitting next to me this whole time, I'm surprised, she'd be very upset.
Yeah, she's not walked past. I thought she must be somewhere cooled up.
Gosh, taking a nap.
So let's have a look what else we've got. So Christian's saying hi. Hi, Christian. Adam says it's a small world where we follow each other. Cool. Thanks, Marcus. Thanks for the super chat. I think you're our first or possibly second super chatter. So thank you very much. I'll have to join with your stream to return the favour. So I think, that's the second time somebody's ever pressed the super chat button. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Cool. So Christine says, I can't follow the full links on here. I assume they just stick at the end of the usual YouTube link. Or is that what somebody's been posting further up? Yeah, I think somebody posted that. Christine posted that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm guessing that's a YouTube link or video code.
Looks like
Yeah. Have you sorted that? Yeah, Alex has sorted that. Thank you. Good. What else have we got? MakerCast is starting in an hour, so we'll wrap this up. Don't worry. and they found it on Atomic 14. Cool. Okay. It probably got censored by YouTube. So Adam says, can you ask Liz what CO2 sensor she's using?
Oh yeah, it's I think it's called the SDC 40. Let me quickly check.
And I'll just say hello, Dave, and thank you for subscribing. I did see that before. That's awesome.
Nice. The SCD 40, and it's true CO2, temperature, and humidity. And Adafruit has it on a Stemma board for breakout. So over I2C, and you can use a little kind of plug and play cable, which is why in mine I did the Feather RP2040 because it has that socket plug.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Alex, for sharing that link. So yeah, the robot xylophone is incredible. I would absolutely agree. That's just an amazing idea that you thought, I'm going to do this. So where do you buy the solenoids from and all the rest of the stuff?
Mainly from Adafruit, and I actually was buying like 5 solenoids a month to budget it out.
Yep.
Because otherwise it could get wild. Yeah, so I think it's 30 solenoids total.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's
and it sounds
lot, but,
great. You know, sometimes you have these ideas and then you put it together and you think, oh, that's not what I expected. But that really works.
That was what I was worried about. Like, oh, what if this sounds terrible? But I was hopeful only because, like, when you're playing glockenspiel, often, like, there's different material mallets, and the ones that sound really pretty are usually brass or metal. So I was hoping that the solenoid hitting it metal on metal would sound nice, and that's why in that initial video at first works, I'm like shocked that it sounds that good. I was legitimately shocked. I was like, okay.
And that comes across in that video you did. The sort of the light really comes across. It chimed with me particularly. I had this idea. I don't know if we talked about this before live but it was just on the pre-show where we're talking about. I had this obsession with long bell doorbells. There's a company in America called Newtone in the 50s or 60s, and they manufactured these great big doorbells, door chimes. And I thought, imagine if you could get an octave's worth of that, and then you could get some kind of, micro-controlled thing that hit them. But that's as far as my idea went. You've done it. So, kudos.
I think you should pursue that, though. Make a doorbell out of it. I think that'd be awesome.
Cool. It's got Jim F. Hey, Jim. So, hello from Calgary, Canada. He says, enjoyed your journey with the Xylophone MIDI-controlled xylophone. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, Jim.
Cool. So let's have a see what else we've got. It's recently panicked because the circuit I've just sent off manufacturing wasn't working right. Turns out I hadn't powered it.
Yeah. Actually, the other night I was doing some laundry and I didn't have my dryer door closed, but I didn't know that, and so I was trying to turn it on, and it just kept like going boom, 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 and I was like, "Is my dryer dead?" And then I realized the door was open. So
that's it.
Similar energy.
Yep. So what else we got on here? So can you talk about inviting Kevin on to MakerCast? Cool. I'd go on there. Send me an invite. Send me the deets.
Yeah, folks, we should have Kevin on.
Cool. And we had, wow, we must be a bit behind on the chat. There's the 5 CHF. So what currency is that? CHF. Is that Canadian? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
And Alex says, click the super chat button to show your support. Awesome. Cool. So we've got Gnome Pedro. They've been listening to while soldering up the Osciton Scout synth. Awesome. I've got to get myself one of them. They are so cool. I'm a big synth fan.
I recommend it. Yeah. And Tommy does great documentation. And the Scout especially, it's meant for adjusting the code of Arduino. It has all the pins broken out. On the PCB it says for hacking. So that's definitely something I'm gonna be working on next too.
Yeah. Looks really great. Again, I've got a whole box full of tack switches, and I was one point thinking about making a keyboard where you could have a full size, well, a size, QWERTY keyboard, and I thought that's a lot of soldering. Can I commit to that wiring rat's nest, or shall I just avoid that disappointment? But the fact they've got a PCB for this OSCE Scout, I'd be like, yeah, OSCE Tone, yeah, gotta try that for sure.
Definitely.
So I found the 3D printed ghost recently that Liz designed. Also printed out the egg. Awesome.
Oh yeah, Ghost. For past I think it was might have been 2 years ago. I designed up just some little ghosts, and they had little blinking eyes and everything.
Awesome. I like that. We're very big onto Halloween in this house, aren't we, Alex? We go nuts at Halloween. We are that house in the street that's gone a bit too far.
Can you go too far with Halloween?
This is what we say. Can you go too far? We always think, what we're going to do next year. Yeah, I bought a projector, like a video projector, just for that one use a year. Just to have the animations on the window. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
So I feel a bit mortified having to have to chat to read now because I said so many things and I didn't know if I was going to read it out. Next time it might be nicer. It's all cool in here. I think we're all good. No one Pedro have made a fruit. Awesome. It's funny. I was looking before on Adafruit to try and figure out how to write guides, and I was like, I'm surely I'm missing a link. I even came across the guide that's like, you've been, this is how you write the guide. And I was like, yeah, but where's the admin button? I can't find that. And I thought maybe it's some kind of secret society you have to join first. So
if you go on their show and tell,
yes.
And then they'll sometimes reach out depending on projects you're showing. And that's how I got started and how a lot of other folks got started too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Big fan of Adafruit.
And I recommend their show and tell in general. It's a really cool community in the chat and everything. So
yeah, I'm definitely going to check that out. Absolutely. I might even not do a midweek video this week just so I can focus on that. Because if I'm not recording a video, I'm preparing to record a video, or I'm recording a video, or I'm doing the code, doing the build. It's non-stop. Swiss franc. I thought Swiss was on euros. Clearly not. Good. And they stole CH from China. And now China has to have ZH. I see. I've got Laura. Hi, Laura. How's it going? And I sent an email to a client already that says, I'm sorry this is late. Halloween. Halloween has been very big in this house.
We had to observe Halloween. I'm so sorry.
It's a big deal. There's a lot going on. In fact, one of my first little robots was, we went to this local, I don't know what you call it. It's like a warehouse where you can buy old stuff that people don't want anymore. It's kind of like a place you can hoard stuff, but pretend you're selling it. So
I see.
All these glass cabinets. I don't know. It's called Bygone Times. And it's all stuff like my nan would used to have in her house that isn't really of any value, but people think they can sell it. Anyway, we bought some dolls from there, sort of moved the eyes and put some LEDs in there that sort of glow, look evil. So we've got a very big haunted doll collection now. We didn't actually use them, did we? Hey.
That's gotta be a very creepy effect.
It was. It creeped me out. So, has Liz got any projects on the back burner that you want to revisit? Do you have a box of shame? Do you have like a...
The Robo Flute is kind of in a box of shame right now, just because I need to revisit that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think right now that's the only thing that's in a legit box of shame that needs to be revisited. Yep. I do try to... I almost won't let myself really move on to other projects. And that's kind of a way that I also kind of keep inventory under control too with parts. That is something I'm kind of hard on myself.
Yeah, I think I've gone that way more recently. Maybe in the past year, I would only get what I need to build the project rather than just randomly buying stuff and then inventory it. Yeah. And I would finish the video, because if I've built something and not finished it, it's like wasted effort. So everything now has a purpose.
And if you're someone that writes documentation for your projects or does videos, that's actually a really great I find, process to keep yourself on track too,
Yeah.
because you have this kind of end goal, like I finished the project and then there's this that comes afterwards. So it's kind of a nice way to tie everything up.
Yeah. Cool. So we had rituals. That's it. Yep. I could tell stories about that, but I'll keep them for another day. People knocking on doors and telling us that these are not Christian things we've got on the door. We're like, oh, come in, let's talk about it. We just sprinkle this dust on you as you come in.
Oh my God.
So hey, Ovi, how's it going? Ovi was my very first guest on the channel, so special hi to
great.
Ovi. He's based in Nigeria. He's built an amazing robot. So if you Google Destro, that's Ovi's robot. He constructed this out of wood. It's an amazing build. So
Oh, that's awesome. I love when woodworking is brought into electronics.
Alex says all the boxes behind me are in the box of shame. Not all.
I can open any one of these.
That's so not true. Storage. That's what they are. It's just storage.
Yeah.
So Adam says, couldn't make any sacrifices due to lack of suitable guests.
It's all taking a turn.
It is totally roasted. Good. Awesome. So I think we're probably coming to the end of the time here today.
Okay.
Awesome. So let me just have a look if there's anything else I needed to cover off. I think that's everything. We talked about all the questions. I guess all that's left for me to do is to thank you, Liz, for joining the show. Really appreciated coming on, showing your projects, inspiring people, and just being an awesome guest.
Well, thanks so much for having me. It's been awesome, and I look forward to seeing more episodes from you too.
Absolutely.
I think it's a great program you've got set up.
Yeah. And we'll be in touch. We'll keep in the loop now, I think. Awesome.
That's great.
So
and
thanks everybody
you,
for
Alex,
watching.
for looking at chat.
Sorry?
I was thanking Alex for looking at chat.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alex, for looking at chat. Keeping us all nice and safe and moderated. Cool. So thanks, everybody. I shall see you next week, same time. And thank you for Liz for being our amazing guest. And I've got some more guests booked as well for future episodes. I can't share who they are yet, but I'm blown away by who they are. Just as amazing as our Liz. But I'm always surprised when people say, yeah, I'll come on the show. So I look forward to getting those people on board. And until then, I shall see you all next time. So thanks for watching. Bye for now.